flies ever on and on, down from the door where it began. Now far ahead the road has gone, and I must follow if I can.
Hi everyone, it's Brian. I'm back with another video in the Middle-earth Ranger series. Today I'm going to be talking about a field expedient way to fletch arrows. This is the way, I fletch my arrows like this all the time, but it is a kit that I carry with me whenever I carry my bow and my quiver. I do carry the components to do this in the field, and this really ties into a larger concept, which is the ability to repair your gear in the field. Now, as a ranger, as someone that is operating independently of support for large portions of your time, you do need to be able to repair clothing, equipment, anything that would break, that would be necessary for you to continue. So if your boots get torn up, you need to be able to stitch them back together. Same thing with your cloak, your clothes, and whatever it is that you have. So maintaining your weapons is one of your priorities in any sort of military situation. So I'm going to be talking about arrows specifically here, but I will be doing a broader video in the future when I talk more about gear repair as a concept, and I'll go into the repair kit that I carry as part of my standard loadout. But this is part of my archery loadout. So you've seen my arrows before. These are with the bodkin points that I forged. I do have those fletched with white and green. So I have a shaft here. Already have the point affixed, but clearly I got the fletchings on it. So the first things that I'm going to do is I'm just going to get all my kit and lay out what I have. I have a series of these leather discs. You can see this one is marked 3/8 of an inch. I have a 5/16 inch one as well, depending on the diameter of the arrow shafts that I'm using. So this is for the 3/8, which is what I'm using here today. You'll notice it has a hole punched in the center, and out from that are 3 slits. So in order to make this, I just took a scrap of veg tan leather. I took and actually printed off a guide, a fletching guide, and traced the 3 lines onto this, and then I punched a hole in the center and cut those lines out. So I'll explain how that's used in a second. I do have just some vanes here. These are feathers, but you could, instead of using, obviously if I'm taking out to a field expedient kit, I'm probably not carrying spare fletchings with me, but you could take feathers that are found or gathered in the wild, trim them down with your knife, and then use this same kit and the same method to fletch your arrows. Now the last thing would be, I do have a roll here of artificial sinew. I do carry this in my kit. I don't carry this whole roll though, but for the sake of the project today, I'll be using what's on my roll rather than what I keep in my kit. So first things first, I need to look at one of my existing arrows. I needed to make a measurement. So I'm just lining up my nocks here, and I have my points are gonna, the tips of my feathers are gonna end up right here. So I could mark that, but again, we're looking at the field expedient version. So from this side where you can see the taper, I'm just going to insert that. I'm going to slide it down. If I'm doing this at home, again, I typically would measure this out and mark it instead of doing it this way. But with here, I'm actually going to slide that leather disc up past the point where the fletchings are going to end. And we're just going to refer back to this arrow a couple of times as we go. So now that that's on there, I'm going to line up with the nock. Actually got it pretty much already spot on. So you can see I have one feather coming off here, one here, and one here. Those slits are where the feathers are going to line up. So the one that is directly perpendicular to the knock, I'm going to have my green feather there. And all I'm going to do is just take this and insert it here so it sticks out the other side. And that's going to hold that in place. So again, using my reference arrow, just holding that up, and everything lines up. So now that I know that one's in the right place, I can go in and do the same thing with my other two feathers. Get everything lined up. Now these back ends, they are going to twist and get out of shape. That is okay. We will bind them down as we go. All right, so now I have all three of the feathers in. The tips of the feathers are all lined up. And they're all inside that disc. So I'm going to start here at the top end. I'm going to space these out evenly, and I'm going to begin wrapping this with the artificial sinew. Getting everything lined up as much as possible first. All right. All right, so the sinew is pre-waxed. You could use wax linen thread for this as well. But this is what I have, and this is what I use. So I'm going to start just by making a simple half hitch. Just like that. I'm going to tighten that. I'm not actually tying that over where the feathers are. I'm actually tying that just directly above where the feathers sit. Just like that. Okay. I've got quite the long tail there, so I'm going to go ahead and trim that down a little bit. All right. So with that laid down so we can wrap over it, I'm going to start winding this up. Now as I get to the point where I'm going over the feathers themselves, I'm just pushing them lightly to make sure that they stay in line with where I want them to be. And I'm wrapping this tightly. Putting quite a bit of tension, and at this point also I'm keeping the artificial sinew flat so that it spreads out and covers those. And I'm going to wrap that until I've covered about 1/4 of an inch of the tips of the feathers. Just like that. Now, once I've done that, I'm going to take my roll over and back through my loop like this, just to form another knot, right? And I'm going to pull that tight, and that'll help lock this in place. Now, there's going to be tension on this, and once I'm finished, I do actually go over these with glue, but we'll touch on that in a second. All right, so now this end of the feather is locked in place. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pull the disc. You see how the feathers just come through like that? I'm not going to pull it all the way off. I'm going to pull it down here to the base of the feathers, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to line everything up from here the way I want it to be. So it's got a little bit twisted out of position from where I need it. So I need that green feather back up here, and white feathers here and here. Once I'm happy with how that's lined up, green, white, and white, now I'm actually going to start spiraling around the feathers themselves to lash them to the cord. And this is where I'll start taking and twisting this down to make it a little bit tighter. And normally I'll come out like this, I'll push it down, and then come back in. Just like that. Doing it like this helps me maintain a nice even spiral. And it helps me make sure I'm not catching any of the feather barbs in a way as to interfere with the arrow flight. Now, is this the most precise, perfect way to fletch arrows? No, it's really not. There's a reason that they make, fletching jigs, and people spend a lot of time fletching their arrows to make sure that the spiral of the feathers is correct, and everything is very precise. Caught a barb. There we go. But I am one of the okayest archers I know. I am not a fantastic archer. Okay, once I get to this point here, I'm actually just going to slide that disc off completely. Just let it fall and finish out the wrap. Once I get to this tail end here, I'm going to tighten everything up, but before I do that, I'm just going to kind of wrap that there to hold that in place. And again, because that's sticky, it's going to hold that. And I'm going to go back and look at my feathers again, because at this point they're not tied down at the other end. I can still shift them a little bit. So you see this green one's got a little bit more twist in it than I would like, so I can just kind of shift it over. I'm wanting to bring it back up in line with this, which means I'm going to need to move the white one and the green one. But going back to what I was saying earlier, I am not a precision archer. I've never been. I mean, I've been to a few primitive archery competitions, mostly just for fun, because I absolutely did not place anywhere in the rankings in any of those, and that's okay. I do archery for fun. I'm a good enough archer that I could hunt if I needed to, but these arrows fly straighter than I am capable of sending them, so I'm pretty happy with the way this does. And it's quick and it's easy, and I like the way it looks. So you can see I've got the feathers lined up there. They've got a little bit of a twist to them. So I'm going to take this sinew back loose, and I'm going to just start binding up that bottom 1/8 of an inch of these feathers. Now at this point you will be lashing down the barbs of the feathers, and that's okay. So I'm going to keep going until I've completely covered the ends of all of the fletchings, and then I'm going to continue like these until I come just above the knock. So this serves two purposes, the obvious one being that it holds the fletchings down, but also since I do wooden self knocks, which are very strong, I do them across the grain, taking this sinew and wrapping down to the knock gives me a little bit of extra reinforcement there. All right. This is the other reason I work with artificial sinew. I can just let it go and not really worry about it. So I'm going to take this around like I did last time, and then back through, just like that, just to make one last knot in this before I trim it off. And pull it tight. And that's that. So, get my knife out again, trim that off. It's going to leave a slight tail on there, which is okay, because again, this is artificial sinew that sticks to itself. And I'm just going to take that and smooth it down into the rest. And there we have our fully fletched arrow. So I now have a set of 3 bodkin point arrows, which if I am carrying a bow when I go ranging, 3 is about all the arrows that I carry, because if I was going to be using it to hunt, I don't need much more arrows than that. And if I was using it in combat, I would not be in an extended combat situation while functioning as a ranger anyway. So I don't necessarily need tons and tons of arrows. So that is my field expedient fletching method. I wish I could remember where I picked that up. I feel like it was somebody on the Middle Earth Ranger forum that posted a link to an article that had that leather disc, and I loved the idea, and I just ran with it, and I've been using it for several years now. This is the first set of arrows that I've made that's matched in any way, and I use the word matched very loosely. If you're an archer and you know the term matched arrows, you're going to know that these are not matched arrows, because I don't even know the exact weights on these arrow points. I didn't weigh them. I just kind of guesstimated. They're really close and they fly very well, but they're not matched in the traditional archery sense. But so I hope y'all found this useful and interesting. I do look forward to my next video that I'm going to be putting out on the Middle Earth Ranger series, and I hope to see you guys again soon.